Are you sure the coffee that you drink every morning is actually 100% real coffee? No fillers, no chemicals, no gimmicks. It might sound obvious, but the truth is astounding. A large percentage of coffee products being sold across the U.S. aren't as simple as you might think. Some are mixed with filler powders, some use artificial flavoring, and some batches were even recalled for containing glass shards inside. Many brands have been caught labeling incorrectly, misleading consumers with names like decaf Colombian or 100% pure without specifying what is in them. Don't get swayed by exorbitant prices of coffee to settle for substandard products because you have no idea what you're paying for. This video is going to pull back the curtain on the dirty side of the industrial coffee world, where low cost is often paired with unsuspecting health risks. In case you still believe all coffee on the supermarket shelf is safe, you might have to look again. Let us cut to 7 types of coffee that you should avoid if you care anything about your health and about integrity in what you consume. Number 1. Kirkland's signature Colombian coffee. Did you ever buy coffee just because the packaging had the word Colombian on it and assumed that therefore it had to be good? You're not alone. Countless consumers have made a decision to buy this coffee from Kirkland Costco's in-house brand simply because Colombian is a name that has long been linked with visions of being high-quality, high-mountain Arabica beans, carefully hand-picked harvests, and a snappy, bold flavor. Hold on a minute. Think about it. When you open the package, have you ever caught a whiff of the aroma being slightly off? Folks claim it's a light, smoky odor or coffee with something disproportionately artificial about it. And these aren't fluke complaints. You'll get the same grievance echoing over and over on forums where long-time, middle-aged coffee drinkers are starting to wonder, is something not quite right here? We investigated ingredients and production process. The initial red flag is the fact that they don't disclose the true percentage of Arabica, roasting procedure, and most specifically whether additives are involved. Kirkland claims this is 100% Colombian coffee. But as most savvy coffee consumers know, that doesn't necessarily mean 100% pure if things like artificial fragrance or post-roast processes are not disclosed. A third-party taste and scent test completed mid-2025 indicated that a few batches of Kirkland's signature Colombian contain artificial flavoring, the kind typically used to infuse coffee with freshness or mask over roasting burnt flavors. And the kicker, none of that is listed on the label. So why on earth would a deep-pocketed brand like Kirkland with humongous supply chains resort to something like this? Is the whole thing just about cutting costs yet preserving that premium aura? Or have consumers simply got so used to artificial coffee syntoses that they've forgotten what the real thing actually smells of? If you consume Kirkland's signature Colombian daily and you're fine, that does not necessarily imply that it's good for your health. We're not asserting this coffee will hurt you overnight. But the question is, do you really know what you're putting in your body? A cheaper cup may be coming at the expense of unwanted chemicals quietly accumulating in your body. What do you say to a product millions of people trust every morning, but which may be concealing something the company isn't explaining? We're just stating the facts. The choice is yours. Number 2, Clover Valley Instant Coffee. Did you hear how more and more Americans are turning to instant coffee because it's convenient, inexpensive, and seems safer? Well, the story of Clover Valley, Dollar General's store brand coffee product, might make you think twice. In February 2025, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration put out an urgent recall of Clover Valley instant coffee. The reason could contain bits of glass. Yes, that's right, pieces of glass. That is not a minor error. That is the kind of danger which could lead you to swallow something that ought to be in a laboratory, not in your breakfast cup. Only 3 lots of production proved to have a potential risk of contamination, designated L5163, L5164, and L5165, all with December 2026 expiration dates. The product were distributed nationally in 48 states. While there has been no reported injury officially, the question on everyone's mind is, how does glass get into a can of coffee that is found sitting on store shelves in America? You would expect accidents like this to only happen at small factories or with unregulated items. Not so. Clover Valley is Dollar General's proprietary line of retail giant with more than 19,000 stores nationwide. Ring a bell? You grab a jar of instant coffee when you fill up the gas tank. Rush to work. Whip one up at the office. But you don't think about what could be hiding behind those brown crumbs. Nobody can guarantee that the jar you bought is not one of the ones being recalled. Nobody is testing each spoonful you stir into your morning cup. And nobody, but you can ask the hard question, is the bargain price worth an unacceptable gamble? What makes this specific instance so alarming isn't really the accident, but what it suggests. Where was the quality control when it was even possible for something like this to hit the market? Was it because it was being sold for a few dollars, so the standards were not high? Was it because consumers of cheap products are expected to overlook, forget, or simply don't matter? Would you risk it when it's in the coffee that you consume every single day? You know who's going to have to respond to that question already. Number 3, great value classic roast. Did you ever stop and wonder why there are certain packages of coffee that cost a few dollars, but they still read 100% coffee in big bold print on the package? And if it is actually 100%, then 100% of what is it? We got down and dirty with the great value classic roast Walmart cheap brand coffee. It's on the shelf of almost every retailer, with sales of millions of units annually. To many customers, especially middle-aged and older shoppers, it's a familiar, accessible item, inexpensive and sufficient. But when you scratch the surface of that, you find something quite unsettling. There's not much or any visible information about the nation of origin of the beans, the coffee type, the roast, or any quality promises that would be relevant. Even if you try to search at Walmart's website or the company's website, all you get are generic terms like blend, medium, roast, or classic flavor. Pretty sounding words that do not tell you anything. In a study released by a New Jersey research organization on commodity standards, Great Value Classic Roast was one of the brands with the highest coarse ground level and non-coffee filler content among more than 30 products tested. In the same report, its taste profile was enriched with synthetic additives to give a stronger taste despite an unusually low content of actual coffee. If you've ever drunk this coffee and found it kind of bland but somehow queerly powerful at the same time, you weren't imagining it. That's what you get from a carefully constructed blend of industrial caffeine fillers and flavoring chemicals rather than a high concentration of decent coffee beans like you might expect. The question isn't really, is this coffee bad for you? It's, is it actually coffee in the form you'd expect? And this is the horrifying part. Shoppers aren't notified to any of it. No contains additives label. No includes substitute blends notice. Just an attractive package and a low price. And you can't help wondering why be honest with customers if they never ask. And if business is willing to take liberties with something as ordinary as coffee, what else would they be prepared to scrimp on in order to save pennies? Do you still believe that cut-price cup of coffee is really so cheap? Or are you now starting to wonder what's really in that great value bag? Number 4, Fuller's Classic Roast. Boosted risk of cancer, nerve damage, hormonal disruption. Those are not sensationalized headlines from a health organization. They are actual scientific findings attributed to a chemical known as acrylamide that scientists have discovered in most foods and, even more alarmingly, in some mainstream American coffees like Fuller's Classic Roast. This is a chemical which is not something added from outside. It naturally occurs in high-temperature roasting, especially when beans are roasted a little too dark in order to achieve that dark color and smoky flavor most are familiar with. The problem is that once the concentration of acrylamide rises to the point where it's no longer safe, it's no longer safe. Studies by the National Cancer Institute and FDA have both warned that acrylamide causes cancer in laboratory animals. Though there isn't yet conclusive evidence regarding its entire impact on humans, global food safety authorities are in accord on at least one issue. It needs to be as low as possible in our regular diets. So why are there still products with acrylamide levels so elevated as to make eyebrows rise? Fuller's Classic Roast is among the top-selling ground coffees in America. But because it's roasted so heavily, many of its production lots have found their way onto independent lab reports with acrylamide content way over what you can find in some of the high-end brands. You can get those reports easily. But here's the strange part. The packaging of the product contains no warning, no instructions for use, no stated amount of acrylamide content. That leaves consumers believing they're just buying strong, rich, old-fashioned coffee, when in fact what they're ingesting is a known carcinogen daily unaware. It's not about sullying an ancient brand like Folgers as evil or dangerous. The problem here is the insufficiency of truth used in marketing and consumer disrespect for feelings of safety. This is a product that enters millions of homes each day, sitting on each grocery store shelf, but contains something scientists still debate. Will you keep buying it out of habit? Or will you start to wonder what really goes into that cup they're not including you in? Number 5, Traverse City Cherry Decaf Ground Coffee. Did you know that caffeine, although it is a part of daily life for most people, can be extremely dangerous for people who have heart disease, high blood pressure, or anxiety disorders? And just think it is even more risky when you consume it in the form of a product that says it is decaf, i.e., zero content of caffeine. That is what happened with Traverse City Cherry Decaf Ground Coffee, our family product that left many customers stunned. Why? Because they sold this decaf coffee all over the country, but took the trouble to decaffeinate it. This was not an innocent little mistake. It was the kind of blunder that could put heart condition patients into the hospital. How does a product aimed at customers who are specifically looking to avoid caffeine not eliminate that most fundamental detail? The recall occurred in early 2025 after it was discovered that several under-decaffeinated batches had already hit the shelves in more than 15 states. People who thought they were drinking a safer version of coffee were actually drinking the same ingredient they were trying to eliminate. Let's say you're middle-aged, going to extremes to control your blood pressure, and you choose Traverse City Cherry Decaf as your peaceful morning coffee ritual. You find out one day that your body's been getting an intravenous shot of caffeine every morning for weeks or even months. What would be going through your mind? A harmless error or a heartless lapse of quality control? And to make matters worse, none of the customers were told immediately. Some just heard about it through social media or stumbled upon a news piece. That in itself is evidence of one thing. If you don't go looking for it, nobody is going to hand it to you. When did you ever last read the ingredient list? If even the decaf products cannot be trusted to live up to their name, what in the world would the companies be apt to skimp on trusting that consumers won't mind? Not everyone is so sensitive to caffeine, but for someone on meds, the difference might be stability versus danger. Would such a mistake receive a free pass just because the product is cheap, convenient, and well-known? Number 6, New Mexico Pinyon Coffee. If you're using coffee pods every day for the convenience, you might want to know this before you make your next cup. This is not the flavor. It is not the caffeine. It is the ink used to print on the foil caps of those pods. New Mexico Pinyon Coffee, especially the dark pinyon variety formulated for Keurig machines, has been a long-time favorite for its unique flavor, mixing coffee with native pinyon nuts. But lately, people closely tracking food safety announcements have started wondering about one rather pointed question. What exactly could possibly be seeping from those pods into your morning coffee? Certain coffee pods, including not just this one, employ thin aluminum lids with ink-printed designation of the flavor. The problem is that some inks industrial producers place on packaging are not designed to withstand temperatures of water contact higher than 194 degrees Fahrenheit, which accidentally happens to be the standard brewing temperature in coffee machines. Independent research has shown that the ink used on black pinyon pod lids could leach into the coffee once it has been brewed, even though in very small amounts. But if you drink the coffee every day, every week, every month, do those small amounts stay small? Industrial inks can contain solvents, stabilizers, and colorants, many of which have no definitive proof showing they are safe to be eaten. And best of all, no notice has come from manufacturers or stores. You think you're drinking an artisanal New Mexico Pinyon coffee, but there is a high likelihood that each cup is served with a chemical cocktail out of that printed lid that no one talks about. Do the manufacturers know? Possibly. Or maybe they just think it's not serious enough to act on a remark that generally supports change in the food industry. So the question remains, do you gamble silently given nobody has yet shown any obvious signs of poisoning? Or do you set your own boundaries before somebody else needs to pay the cost? Remember, just because it's on the shelf at a supermarket doesn't mean it's completely safe. Number 7, Yuban Traditional Roast Coffee. Do you ever get the impression that you're paying for something that just isn't what it used to be? Yubin was once the gold standard of authentic American coffee. Strong aroma, full flavor, and that classic old-school feel. But these days, if you have a discerning taste, chances are you might already know. The taste has changed, and it's not necessarily due to your taste buds reaching their third phase. On the Yubin traditional roast coffee pack, the words 100% pure coffee are still confidently printed. But take a closer look, and you'll find that it no longer uses only top-class Arabica beans, as it once did. A lot of that has been substituted with cheaper Robusta beans and artificial flavoring and processing. Why is it a bad thing to make the substitution from Arabica to Robusta? Because Robusta, besides tasting more bitter, is typically added to factory blends of coffee to cut costs. It has more caffeine, sure, but it also contains a greater amount of chlorogenic acid, a substance that will irritate the stomach and provide a stomachache to older users or anyone with a sensitive digestive system. And that's just the beginning. In a misguided attempt to make up for the lost flavor in the bean ratio change, the company has used artificial flavorings, something not openly disclosed on the labels. This is what irks so many faithful customers. Are you buying this coffee from memory, from decades of faith? You're not alone if so. Many who stuck with Yubin for so long now think it no longer tastes real. What's unsettling is that there isn't even a hint on the label that the formula has been altered. No notice, no saying why, just one undeniable fact. The name Yubin remains, but the product is no longer what you're used to. When an aging legacy brand alters without saying anything to its users, is that still respectful? Will you continue to purchase it because of nostalgia? Or will you start wondering whether you have a right to know more about what you consume every day? Not everyone is free to read every single word on a product, and not every company is willing to share. But with some effort, you can avoid products that make you feel cheated, underestimated, or even worse. Forced to give up your health for a few pennies of gain. You can't turn the entire market around, but you can turn your choices. Starting with a closer look at your morning coffee. This channel is not supportive of partitioning the United States, nor of advocating education. All is presented for the purpose of investigation, analysis, and debate in accordance with current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We have the utmost respect for the United States Constitution and all federal law. If today does what could you think, leave a comment so we can continue the discussion. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you will never miss our next self-sufficient deep dive.